me to introduce myself. I am Jezebel D. Patelona, a 20 years of existence living in the municipalities of Midillian. And for today's video, I would like to share to you about my knowledge, the connectionism theory by Edward Thorndike. Edward Lee Thorndike, or was known as Edward Thorndike, was born on August 31, 1874 and died on August 9, 1949. He was born in Williamsburg, Massachusetts, studied animal behavior and the learning process led to the theory of connectionism, and he was laying the foundation for the modern educational psychology. Thorndike's biography: firstly, studied conditions of learning. Secondly, known as a godfather of standardized testing. Thirdly, helped develop scales to measure students' achievement. And lastly, was famous for his unique technique. Thorndike's theories focused on conditions of learning, stimulus response, learning habits, though it was wise to pay close attention to consequences and behavior through reinforcement. Connectionism theory. A connectionism theory is based on the principle of active learning and is the result of the work of American psychologist Edward Thorndike. This work leads to Thorndike's laws. According to these laws, learning is achieved when an individual is able to form associations between a particular stimulus and response. The three main laws of Thorndike's are the law of readiness, the law of exercise, and the law of effect. These latest sessions in UTO trainings on ongoing series on instructional design will discuss these three laws in detail. The 5 additional laws of Thorndike's learning theory, and the 4K of principles of the theory, and the 3 new laws used in instructional design today.
Why should I care about connectionism theory?
I know many of you ask the same questions, so let me answer of this. When it comes to learning, and in particular our study habits, we tend to overlook the importance of firstly understanding how the brain and its mental processes function in order to work as efficiently as possible while achieving the best result. For us to become masters of our learning and therefore our grades, we must first comprehend the mechanics of our mind. Connectionism has dominated the theoretical study of learning for the last 20 years and provides an explanation of our mental phenomena, including how we learn, that could aid your studies dramatically.
Someone please explain connectionism.
Edward Thorndike's connectionism theory is built on the foundation of that learning is the result of associations or habits become strengthened or weakened by the nature and frequency of the stimulus response pairings. Mental phenomena is attributed to synaptic and neural activity whereby information is perceived spreading. This means that when information enters your brain, neurons begin to activate, forming a specific pattern, then produces a specific output, forming a networks between neurons. So to understand this, let's look for a simple example. Imagine a person tells you to define the word, a concept of a kettle. When you hear the word, the set of neurons associated with it activate automatically in your brain. The activation of the group of neurons spreads to others is connected to. This may include neural patterns related to the words tea, coffee, or boil, leading you to define kettle as a device that boils water to make tea and coffee. Thorndike outlined that learning taking place when a strong connection between stimulus and a response is formed, and he came up with three primary laws for this. The first one is the law of effect. The law of effect emphasizes that habit and formation is controlled by rewards. A connection between the stimulus and response is strengthened when the consequences is negative. And the second one is the law of exercise. This outlines that the more stimulus response bond is practiced, the stronger it will become. And lastly, the law of readiness. It stated that the more readiness the learner has to respond to the stimulus, the stronger the bond will be between them. Thorndike also stated that connectionism has 4 key principles based off these laws. Number 1 is the learning requires both practice and rewards, which means the law of effect or exercise. Number 2, stimulus and response associations can be linked if they belong to the same action sequence, or they called it the law of readiness. Number 3, the transfer of knowledge occurs because of previously encountered situations. And lastly, number 4, intelligence is determined by the number of connections learned. Memory is created by modifying the strength of the connections between neural units. The patterns of activations that are formed during processing are not then stored in a system as memories. Instead, they are thought as a learning in the trees of the network through the alternation they produce in the strength of the connections. These alternations can then allow the pattern to be reconstructed in the future as a form of memory. Learning the meaning of a word, for example, does not involve concept learning at all, but simply involves learning to associate the word with internal knowledge that already exists in your mind. So anything that a network can represent after learning must have been possible to represent between learning. This also applies at all other knowledge in your studies by associating what you're trying to learn or memorize with information that already exists in your mind. You'll find it easier to remember this information and recall it at a later time if you're just trying to remember the concept on its own. While we still can't claim the brain works in this exact way, connectionism's theory is supported by many scientists, and it's good basis for understanding how we learn. And that could be all about the connectionism theory by Edward Thorndike. I hope you all understand, and thank you for watching.